New commitment for Notre Dame in the 2027 class, and it is a surprise, one out of left field of sorts. We're going to talk about it in this video of Blue and Gold's Tyler James. Folks, please do hit the thumbs up on this video. Subscribe to the Blue and Gold YouTube channel for more content. And of course, go to blueandgold.com for so much more coverage of this news. I spent 30 minutes talking with this young man and his head coach, so there's just so much so many juicy nuggets from the conversation to learn more about this young man. And it is Jackson Hill from West Hills, California, Chaminade High School. As you see on the screen right now, it says he's committed to UCLA. Of course, we're recording this before he announced it, but flipping his pledge that he gave to the Bruins on April 4th to Notre Dame. Not ranked very highly, Tyler James. This is someone who, Notre Dame got on their radar in the middle of spring, like when coaches could start hitting the road in April. I was told that director of, or what is Kenny Sanders' title, assistant GM or something like that. Kenny Sanders, who came to Notre Dame from Penn State, went to go to this high school, and then Coach Rudolph went out there, and Notre Dame really fell in love with this kid. So he is kind of like this year's Charlie Tom, where it's that like kind of surprise late offensive line addition. And Hill goes 6'6.5", 300 pounds, baseball background. We'll talk more about that, but we'll just pop on the film now from the junior season. Tyler James, what do you see with Jackson Hill on his junior film?
Yeah, not very often we're recording a video that while we're recording it, the fans who end up watching this have no idea who this guy was at the time we're recording it. But yeah, I think he's an impressive run blocker. That's what stands out the most to me about Jackson Hill. He can do a lot of different things. He can win a one-on-one block at the point of attack, like you see there. He can pull. You saw him get out in front of a reverse. He can manhandle linebackers. He's sort of has this quickness that allows him to react to linebackers that are trying to avoid him, and he still is able to get his hands on them and drive them back. He's got pretty good bend. He plays a little bit upright when he's moving in space, but he has the ability to adjust to that and take guys to the ground. So I like him a good bit. One thing that I thought of while working on my film study of him is motor is like something that we tend to use when we're talking about defensive linemen. But I that stands out to me about Jackson Hill. Like, he might not be blowing a guy away at the start of a play, but he keeps going, he keeps fighting, and he's going to keep trying to put the guy into the ground. And so I think that's a good attribute for an offensive lineman to have. Obviously, a good mean streak. He's a big kid, can physically dominate guys, and we'll see how he develops at moving to the second level. I'm curious if he ends up staying outside. We don't see a ton of pass pro. Have some questions there. He catches a little bit in terms of some of the clips we do see of his pass pro, but will he stay at tackle? Will he move inside? That's a question that could be answered sometime down the line, but an interesting get for Joe Rudolph and the Irish on the offensive line.
Yeah, this 27 offensive line class has been obviously very interesting. You get the early guys from Richie Flanagan, who was going to play D line, now it's offensive line, and you get Jordan Halter's son, James Halter, who could be a tackle. I think he's probably a guard. Of course, Olu Babola, the 5-star from New Jersey's committed. Like, does Notre Dame end up landing Leighton Von Brandt? Like, what about Albert Simeon? Like, I feel like it's every year, Tyler. It's like, oh, Notre Dame's going to take 4 offensive linemen, and then ends up being like 5 or 6. So this is trending towards 5, an offensive line class of 5, and potentially 6. I feel like on his film, he seems like a ball of clay with no bad habits, really. Like, he just seems like, all right, coach, here I am, like, develop me. Like this year's Charlie Tom, I said, like, that kind of the late bloomer, someone who Notre Dame maybe necessarily wasn't planning on taking this extra number, so to speak. But then, you just go see him on the road, or they come to camp, and just like, man, like, we really want this kid. And especially on the offensive line, I feel like that's such like a developmental position. And Notre Dame loves to take, like, go back to Joe Alt. Like, he was totally that back in the 2021 class. And, I'm not saying that Jackson Hill is going to be Joe Alt, but, Notre Dame loves taking developmental offensive linemen, like Grayson McHugh, even like in a way at the time. Like I think Notre Dame offered him in the spring going into his senior year. He ended up
Yep.
as a 5-star prospect, but like I feel like at the time that Notre Dame started recruiting him, he was kind of viewed as even like a developmental, like high ceiling guy. So I'm all over the place here, Tyler. Do you want to jump in on anything? I do agree. I think guard long term. But it'll be interesting, like the measurements, the arm length, and all those things. But at 6'6.5", 300 pounds right now, he has the size to stay out of tackle.
Yeah, an allegedly 83-inch wingspan. That was what was reported in one of the
Wow.
stories from our UCLA site previously. So yeah, a kid with good size. It's just a matter of how he develops, and especially with the pass protection. How well does he do with landing punches and playing in reverse rather than attacking a guy? And obviously, you can be aggressive as a pass blocker too, but it's a little bit different out at offensive tackle. So I think there's a lot to like here. Like you said, there's some rawness to his game, but I think he's got some good athletic traits, good length, and a late bloomer. And I think that's okay. I think especially at offensive line, you can see a lot of guys that were dominant as freshmen and sophomores in high school, and then by the time they're ready to play in college, it's like, well, he's kind of tapped out physically. I don't
Sure.
get that sense with Jackson Hill.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like I said, Notre Dame evaluated him in the spring, had him out for like a secret visit. And, he gets the offer and, it took a little bit of time and then, told Notre Dame earlier in May that he wanted to make the flip and then announcing it here on May 14th. And like, look, if you're a stargazer, you don't love this, but at what point do you just be like, all right, I'm going to trust Notre Dame and the staff? Like, I don't think Joe Rudolph is like, I want to take a scrub. Like he's not like he's taking Jackson Hill because he thinks that Jackson Hill is a great player. Like he doesn't care about what a ranking says, and rankings often change too. So like,
Yeah.
I know people like to talk about like, oh, the Bama bumper. There's just the conspiracy that I squash all the time that guys commit to Notre Dame and they drop. Newsflash, guys, when offensive linemen commit to Notre Dame, I feel like these evaluators that do the rankings put a magnifying glass on those kids. Be like, okay, Notre Dame's taking them. Like, we need to watch this kid really close. Think about all the guys who committed to Notre Dame and then were bumped to 5-star status, especially on the offensive line.
Yep.
Like Emil Wagner was that. Charles Jagasaw was that. Gerby Lambert was that. Grayson McHugh was that. Will Black. I mean, it's happened, like every year for the past few years. Now that might not happen this year. I think the Notre Dame's 5-star is going to be Olu Babola, but he's already a 5-star. But yeah, Jackson Hill. This is who Notre Dame wanted to go get. So, and that's what they got. Flipped them from UCLA, which is recruiting pretty at a high clip right now.
Yeah.
Stanford offered him, I believe it was last week. They wanted to flip him away. Had several other offers. I think he would have only blown up more this spring. If his recruitment would have continued.
Yeah, and I think a UCLA commit from California, it's like, oh, okay, it's understandable if they find someone that's maybe a little under the radar, and then other schools get wise to that. So yeah, I think I agree with you that more schools would have been coming his way, and maybe he will still come his way even if while he's committed to Notre Dame, because he's putting together some good tape.
Okay. Well, that's going to do it for this video, folks. Please hit the thumbs up on it. Subscribe to the Blue and Gold YouTube channel for more content. And like I said earlier, I had a big interview with Jackson and his high school head coach where we really got to learn about him and how this came together and his athletic background. So you guys will love that. So check it out, blueandgold.com, as well as analysis of this news. And as always, folks, we will catch you next time.